and our most inspirational within the class. Officer Fitzgerald, he will be starting LET, headed up to the Law Enforcement Training Center starting on November 27th, and then his 13 weeks will begin at that point. And then we did offer employment. It was made and it was accepted to fill our open remaining officer position, and that officer will be starting December 1st. Switching over to the back for the Corrections Department, our today's inmate population was 166. Our month average was 160, and our year average is just a little over 161 for the year. The jail activity this month, from last council meeting to tonight, we have processed 186 new inmates into the facility, 168 were released, and then we had 84 inmate movements throughout that same time frame. Monthly provider visits, again, this is with the doctor visits where the doctors come into our facility. We had 5 separate times that they came in that month, and 42 inmates were seen, and then there was a total of 14 mental health visits for inmates. Billing for October, the prisoner days were $392,090. The transports were just over $11,000. And then Medical Lieutenant Rehack held a CPR class on the 20th that 4 corrections officers and 2 police officers attended to make his 6. And then Corrections Officer or Lieutenant Vober, he attended the Taser Instructor Recertification class that was actually held here today, and then conducted 2 interviews last week for the 1 open full-time position, and intend to make an offer at the end of this week. And nobody volunteered to take the Taser ride this course.
What's the name of the officer starting December 1?
We'll do that. I'll give that to her once they start and do all the paperwork and stuff. Then Chandra goes through once they actually officially start.
We've made the mistake before of giving out information before they've notified their employer or before we see the whites of their eyes, and therefore they're not an official employee until they sign some paperwork, so.
Makes sense.
Any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
How's your budget trending, the revenues and expenses? I know that stuff's put in front of us all the time, but I like it.
In corrections, our budgets, and I can only give you a basic one today. Jody may have the actual percentages, but our revenues are trending higher, and our expenditures are trending a little bit lower than what they were budgeted
All
at.
good in corrections, then?
Yes, yep, absolutely, looking very good. We still have transfers to come out and everything there, but we kind of did the math, and we're still going to be just fine once all.
It's actually been requested that, it's been stated that we don't put our budget out for the revenue and the expenses of our corrections facility line by line. Tomorrow you will see, I will put that out to each of you, and I will also let the public take a look at that from the.
Someone in the public made the statement questioning our budget?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm going to be putting that out specifically line by line to let the public look at what the corrections has done.
No matter how many times we tell the public we're making money in corrections, they don't believe us.
No.
And I would also like to get this out on record as well. If anyone ever has questions about that, I am very transparent with that because that is a public document. We get those updates. Chandra sends them out 2-3 times a week.
Daily.
I would be happy to go over that with anyone that would like to reach out, and it's not real hard to print that piece of paper, and I would definitely go over that because the job that those people do down there in that corrections department, we are very proud of the way they operate that jail, the way they run that jail. We are more than happy to be transparent with the operations of what we do and show exactly how it's trending up and down.
It's a very good question and request. Any others, council?
When they do like Taser recertification, stuff like that, does a corrections or police or anybody bill the people that are coming into winter for them certifications?
No, because we're just hosting the training. So it's actually put on through Axon. And so what happens there is, since we host the training, we get 2 free spots, but then whatever agency sends their people to there, they pay right to Axon, because they're the ones actually running the
But
training.
when don't we have certified instructors that hold classes too?
Yes, so, and then when people from the outside, we haven't really had anybody come in from the outside yet. We've been plenty busy with certifying our own people. So when that happens, we can definitely talk about that, but no, we really haven't up until that point. I think the last TASER training that we did was for the police department, and then some of the guys that needed it from the sheriff's office, they came over too, and so it's kind of been one of those neighborly things, but we always open it up. If anybody needs that stuff, that would be something that would have to be set by you guys, what you want to do with that.
Any other questions, council? Thank you.
Absolutely.
Our next scheduled report is from Code Enforcement Officer Chelsea Luce.
Good evening. I'm up here basically just for a little bit of public education as well as discussion as to what will be coming forward based on Ordinance 1061 and the petition to take it to public vote. When I started last November, 1 year today, woohoo! The stacked hay and flammable material ordinance was already in discussion. Cody and I actually sat down and had a discussion about it as well before he left. And basically, the stance was that the ordinance committee and the council are working on changes to it. So it's a little bit on the back burner until we get something set. We're not addressing it too much. Now that the petition has been taken out and it needs to go to vote, then this is reverted back to the original ordinance, which reads, "It shall be unlawful for any person to deposit or stack any hay, straw, or other flammable material upon or within the corporate city limits or corporate limits of this city so as to be a fire hazard." Since that was reverted and has to be reverted until a public vote is taken, I have now been working. You've probably seen me driving real slow through town with my flasher on. Spent lots and lots of hours driving through town and finding stacked flammable material and hay bales. I currently am sitting at 162 courtesy notices that will be sent out. To put that in perspective, when the snow melted this spring and I actually started being able to see violations within yards and properties, I sent out 115 courtesy notices. So this ordinance alone, not a compilation of ordinances that I enforce, exceeded my total numbers from this spring when I started. I do have some photos that I printed off. I printed off 10 examples of things that you maybe didn't think about or things that do qualify as stacked flammable materials. I'll pass those around, but just to go over a little bit, decorations such as corn stalks that are leaned up in a corner used as fall decoration. It's a stacked flammable material that poses a fire hazard. Of course, nativity scenes and stacked straw bales have been a hot topic, so there's examples of that. We've got tires, we've got grass clippings, pallets, lumber, large tires, again, more, there's gas, if there's a couple gas cans that are near a house, that's an example. Wood pellets that are sold by some of our businesses, along with propane tanks that are stacked, are a flammable material. So I'll pass photos around here. take a look at some of the examples that I found, again, that's 10 of 162. So, are there any questions and I do want to point out that these are courtesy notices. This is not a fine. This is not a citation. This is a courtesy notice that you are in violation of the current ordinance. Paul, do you want me to go into the conditional use, or would you like to discuss that? Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
How many homes have you found to be capable, how does the wording at the end of the ordinance?
So as to pose a flammable?
Yeah. How many homes in winter pose as a flammable threat or?
As a fire hazard?
As a fire hazard.
Do you mean the home themselves, or?
Yeah.
I would assume every one of them, technically. But because it's flammable material, every wooden deck is a flammable material.
It's an interesting ordinance.
Every leaf in your yard is flammable material too.
It's a
You have a
point.
good point, Ron.
It's a very good point. Council, any questions for Chelsea?
So, I don't know when I can make my comment.
You can ask a question.
It's not a question for her.
Okay. Chelsea, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, might I put a few comments in to kind of correspond with her report?
Yes, please.
There's been discussion tonight about whether or not conditional use might allow certain things under this ordinance that otherwise it won't allow. I would just explain that the conditional use is one of the things that exists as a possibility under the various zoning ordinances, depending on which types of uses are going to be permitted conditionally or straight out in each of the different zoned areas. It has nothing to do with flammable materials, things like that. This particular ordinance is in a completely different section and is not related in any way, shape, or form to the zoning question or to the conditional use possibilities. So the short answer to the question is you cannot get a conditional use to otherwise qualify under this ordinance. The other thing that I just wanted to mention so that it's clear, there were some questions, and I think you did make this point, Mr. Mayor, and I'll just try to punctuate it and maybe clear one more sentence. On the upcoming election, December the 12th, there will be a one-issue ballot. And on the ballot, it will explain my explanation of the legal meaning involved in these ordinances. What I want you to understand is that a vote yes is a vote to implement or put into effect the new ordinance that was passed by the council this year. A vote no is a vote to leave the old ordinance in effect. And the other key point that I need to make that people may not understand is this. The moment that we verified that we had sufficient qualified signatures on the ballot so that the ballot was valid under South Dakota statute, at that point in time, automatically, the old existing ordinance comes back into play and remains in full force and effect until such time as we get past the election on December 12th, followed by the canvass done by the council the following week.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I didn't have questions for her, but I have questions, comments to direct to the city attorney.
Floor is yours, Councilman.
So, Mr. Jensen, you've been here for a while and you've seen the council choose to either enforce an ordinance or strike it. That's been the position of this council that I've been a part of. When this ordinance came to our attention, we decided we needed to tweak it, revise it, to try and make it better. Now, it's my understanding, and I'm not trying to lobby the public, I just want to make it clear to the public, and my understanding, I'm asking you this question. A vote no does not allow the new written ordinance to pass, correct? A
Correct.
vote no does not allow it to pass.
Correct.
And therefore, nothing can happen to that ordinance for 1 year, correct?
You make a good point. That
We
this is-
cannot touch it, the council cannot address it, can't touch it. The only thing we can do is enforce the ordinance that's currently on the books. It's been on the books since 1947.
Correct.
Me, as the council, have made the decision to enforce an ordinance or strike it, get rid of it. So a vote no by the public will force the council to enforce this ordinance, not the mayor, it's the public forcing the council to enforce this ordinance. A vote yes would allow the ordinance to go through, and then at which time Mr. Kuchar or the public or whoever can petition their councilman by conversation and say, hey, take a look at this ordinance, whether it's the back half or the front half or whatever. Bring it back up in ordinance committee and tweak it some more. We can do that.
That is
And I think we're always open to listen to our constituents. And that's all I have to say about that.
Did you have questions?
No, thanks for bringing that up, though, Jeremy.
Any other comment or question?
I
Councilman?
just want to
can't
verify
tweak it.
what he said, because he made a statement, we can do that. I think that should be directed as a question to the attorney. Can we do that?
We've had that discussion actually in committee, and he states it exactly correct. If the new ordinance passes at the election, then from that point forward, at any time, whether it's council on your own or if somebody asks you as your benefactor, would you please look at this particular section and maybe give you some ideas? You can do that. If the old ordinance remains in effect because the new ordinance is rejected, if it's a no vote by the majority, then the old ordinance is in place for a full year, and before this council would have the legal authority to do anything with it until a year expires.
Councilman Hockett.
That's a good, no, that's a distinction I was making, so thank you, Paul, for doing that. That's good.
All right. Our next public department report is from Public Works Director Troy Kruger.
Good evening. Go through the departments, water and sewer. With the help of Ray, they had some electrical issues we had to address down in the main lift station with our vertical screen. He had to replace some components in the electrical cabinet. Fixed a leak on the cemetery main, fixed a leak on Oak Street. The PLC for the SCADA system had to be replaced. They did some winterizing out at the well fields, started the boiler up for this office building, refurbished all the batteries on our old SCADA equipment. We found out that just by replacing the batteries rather than replacing the whole battery backup was a lot cheaper alternative, so we went that route. We vectored the main lift station, monthly meter readings, monthly water samples, worked on the sewer main between 3rd and 4th on Lamro Street and Taft, jetted out roots and sewer between Eisenhower and Truman Street. A couple of customers there experienced some backups, and they have 450 radios installed to date, radios and meter combinations. Streets and sanitation, they hung up the Christmas banners and lights, hauled 2 houses off Spruce Street that were Spruce Up Winter Program streets, our homes. We've been working on alleyways with our recycled asphalt, pushed up the millings. As part of the highway the whole highway project, back in when they first came out with that contract, it was It was agreed upon that the city would receive a certain amount of the materials that came off of the project. And the asphalt portion of that, it was agreed upon at $3 a ton, and the exact quantity of that material wasn't, depending upon what the state would use during the project in their mix. What we ended up with was 5,700 ton of recycled asphalt, and the state was kind enough to give us that at $3 a ton, and they kept that price through the remainder of the whole project from the time we started on the east end of town all the way through this. It is some very, very good material that we got out of that. It actually ended up being a gravel asphalt mixture that it cost them a lot more to produce it than we actually bought it for, so that was a really good deal for the city. So we took those millings into our possession here in the last couple weeks. The recycle center and the trash down at the recycle center, they worked out at the landfill they're moving areas around. We're running out of room for trees. We've had a huge amount of trees with the spring and the fall cleanup, and with the winter storms that we had, a lot of people cut down trees. We cut a lot of our own trees down in our parks. But we had to make some room for some more trees down there, and then getting anticipation for doing some burning of those trees this winter. And then we did complete the Hall Road project, which turned out really nice. For your information, what happened there was the city paid for 350 some ton, and the city ended up paying about 250 ton of that. So the state did the state did actually pay for a little more than what they had originally said they would. So our price wasn't quite as high as what we had came to the council with a couple weeks ago. Parks and Cemetery, picking up leaves and off the parks and the city property, blew out the sprinklers in all of our facilities. Funerals, they're working on that half rink that was donated to the city. Washington painting those panels and fixing up they were in pretty good shape for as old as they are, but we did have to do a little fixing up on them. Closing up the restrooms in the parks and in our different areas around town. And we did replace all the doors on all of our parks. McDonald's Park, Leahy Bowl, and Bailey's Field, our doors were falling off the hinges, so we had that project done. Light department moved a bank of poles at the alley west of this and that. We had to make room for a manhole that's part of this highway project. Tore down old overhead line on Plum Street and Iowa Street. They're pulling poles. I know they have 7th Street on their agenda. If you see all the flags on along 7th Street, we've got some bad poles in there that they want to get replaced by winter. They have close to 1,000 meters deployed in the electric department, and they moved a pole on Iowa Street to make room for a residential driveway. Electric department rewiring meters. We're finding as we go through this deployment of meters that there's been some wiring issues with some of these meters. We're correcting those as we find them. Some of it's safety stuff, some of it's just we're putting in a new type of meter. So Ray and Kirk are working on that. New light switches in the city hall bathrooms in the gym area. Replaced motor on the door for the hangar out at the airport. A couple new light fixtures out there in the same hangar. Working on getting manual read meters done with the water department. We currently still have on the books, we have meters, water meters and electric meters that the employees of winter have to go around manually read those meters. So we put a high priority on getting those meters switched out so that we can get all of our reads right off our system instead of those guys having to go around at the first of the month and actually taking a handwritten reading down. And then they have to bring that up to the office. We had some issues with our fuel pumps down at the north shop. We got that straightened around, and Ray rebuilt a service for that little blue cemetery shed out by the cemetery. And working with the Landis people, we had some issues with communication on that, and it was a timing, it was the gateway wasn't keeping the correct time, so fix that. You'll see in your packet tonight, there's a contract for our recycled product that we collect out at the recycle center. Did we include that tonight? Okay. I just, we're looking at that. Paul's got it in front of him. What we're doing there is we're going to propose to sign a contract with Millennium Recycling out of Sioux Falls. And what that really actually does for us is our recycled product would become part of their mainstream supply. So go back a couple years to the COVID situation, when people were bringing recycled materials to Millennium, a lot of the facilities around the country had closed down and they were not accepting product. And so Millennium makes us a priority if we have a contract with them. So if anything like that happens, we're a priority. They'll take care of us. We'll be able to get rid of our recycled materials. So that's what we're looking at, as a contract for that, so we can keep our stuff moving. Just on a routine basis, we could ship out and not have to keep any kind of stuff on hand down there. We don't want to store it or stock it or anything like that. The traffic light on Main Street, I was in contact with those people last week. They have the actual cabinet for us. They want us to confirm a couple things this week. There's a way to bypass the system, and we can check and make sure that all the lights are operational, that we have green, red, yellow lights. We also have to check the pad mounts that are on the crosswalks and make sure that those are all operational and that the lightning strike didn't do any damage to any of those before they bring that cabinet and install that. So hopefully before the end of the year, we can have that traffic light up and running. We had a meeting with MRES last week. The mayor was there, the lawyer was in attendance, finance office, Kurt, myself, and 5 representatives from MRES. And what we were talking about in that meeting was we now have some residents in town that have they have solar installed in their homes. And up until now, they have not got any money back on their what they're over generating. And so we talked about their handbook, and they're in the process of updating that. There's a little bit more on our side. What we've given them basically to date is just a 1-page connection agreement, and this workbook that they're updating kind of goes into more detail on that. So it's a safety thing. It's also make sure that they're putting in the proper equipment to protect our employees, and then some stuff on the billing side and all that kind of stuff. So that was a good meeting. We are going to, those people will, in the future, after the first of the year, we will be able to track their overusage, what they're putting back out on the system, and they will get a small reimbursement for that. And we discussed a few other topics, but EVs and some rebates, things like that. The next thing I have is, I brought this to the mayor and Mr. Jensen late last week. The city sewer department had planned on replacing a sewer main over here between 3rd and 4th, and then between Lamro and Taft. And we were going to go in and dig that old concrete pipe out and replace it with PVC. We did an inspection on that last week, and the sewer is it's collapsing. So it's collapsing from manhole to manhole. The 2 manholes that are on this section of sewer are in the middle of the streets on 3rd and 4th. So talked to the mayor and Mr. Jensen, and this kind of constitutes an emergency situation. So we made.
Where's the street exactly on the?
Welch's. Welch's.
1 block west of
And then
Lamro.
south.
It's between Lamro and Taft and 3rd and 4th. It's in the alleyway.
Okay.
So The condition of the sewers has declined rapidly just since we went in there and replaced a section of pipe about 5 months ago. So we did some calling around and came up with a couple different options. My first option was HydroClean. They're not available. Because the sewer's collapsing, it's probably constitutes a little bit more than just a normal reline. And I got in hold of a company out in Rapid City. They're called Subsurface. And they make a liner that's about 4 times stronger than a normal reline. They do a lot of work for the DOT. They do a lot of work for counties. And what the original purpose of their liner was, they did a lot of culvert relining so that you don't have to excavate the whole road, tear out the old culvert. They put a liner in there, meets all the DOT specs for weight and all that good stuff on their highways and interstates. They were not available to do it, but they did put me in touch with another company, and they gave us a quote on that. The quote for them to come in and do it was around $37,000. Mark's got the funds in his sewer budget to support the project. We also priced it out having the whole sewer main redone, and all new pipe. There's 396 foot of pipe there at $120 a foot plus $250 per tap, and then about $130 for concrete and asphalt to replace the road surfaces. It's going to be just shy of about $100,000. So this is a pretty inexpensive fix for this particular sewer main, and it's going to be basically a brand new pipe in the ground when it's done. So,
For the whole block?
pardon me?
They'll do the whole block?
They'll do the whole block, 396 foot.
Okay.
So those guys were able to come here today and actually camera it for us to make sure that they could do the work for the amount that they quoted me. And we were in there today. The city actually had to go, we actually had to go in there today and replace about 20 foot that they could not get through with their equipment. But that gave them the ability to now go through and do the project at what they quoted us. So, any questions?
The skating rink that was donated to the city, there's been requests for that from different people over times. Did that come with a membrane in with it, or
It was just the wooden panels.
just a wooden panel?
Yep.
That's what we got.
So the city will have to put down, what they recommended was just a silage tarp. And so we'll have to put down a silage tarp, and then there really wasn't any bolts or anything included with it, so we'll have to purchase a silage tarp, and then Marty's looking into the bolts that hold the panels together, so that'll basically be our cost.
Okay. So this is just, must be me misremembering. The only way I could justify this. It was my thought about the solar generation. I thought it was illegal for people to put backflow electricity from their house that they've generated back into the system. I didn't think they could do that, but now you're talking about, yes, they can. We were concerned about them. I thought they actually had to have a backflow device or something so our people didn't get hurt. And I didn't think you could sell it to the general wheeling public, but they can.
They can. Yeah, so anything
Is
that
that
they.
new, or do I remember incorrectly?
There is an electronic switch on those devices so that when the power goes out, that switch switches it over to, they have, most of these people that have it have battery backup. So once that switch switches over, then it's just being then their homes are just being powered by their solar device. But on day-to-day operations, what they're overproducing is, yep, it's going back out on the grid. And we have put in place meters on those homes, and we've programmed those meters so now we can track the amount of usage that the kilowatts that are going back out on the system.
Okay, I must remember incorrectly.
If I understand, Jeremy, on that, I don't think we have to pay them more than what we pay our suppliers.
Correct. Councilman Shrem, you're exactly correct.
I believe that's the law. And they have a cutoff switch that when there's no power coming in to that house from our system, no power can leave that house into our system either, so that our people don't get electric.
Actually, the power that gets fed back out on the grid is metered, and MRES comes out every year in October, and they set a price at which they will purchase that back. So they just, the purchase,
This year's price is 4.4 cents per kilowatt.
and next year's, they already set it for next year, it's 3.06 cents.
Okay, good enough.
So the city will have no say in this power usage cost.
We still set our retail rate. We do that by ordinance, but as far as what they purchase, and Shandor was quick to point this out, they are not selling it back to the city of Winter, they're actually selling it back to MRES.
Yes.
MRES is what sets that purchase rate.
And MRES pays them. This doesn't come through us.
We'll pay them, they'll reimburse us.
Okay.
It's just like a rebate that they would receive through the city of Winter. Ultimately, it'll come through their billing, so that it'll show how much utilities or how much electric they used, how much they put back out on there. What they used will be at the 11 cents that they'll pay. What they put back out there will be at the 3 cents. And then it's also our loss ratio gets factored into there too. So if we have a 8% loss ratio, then we'll pay 8% less than that 3.06.
Perfectly clear.
I have a couple questions for you. You said that we had 450 radios installed to date, out of how many?
About 1,600.
1,600? Okay. And then a couple of questions that weren't addressed on this. I got a call the other day about whether or not we painted the crosswalks at the schools. Did we not do that this year?
We did not.
And I just need to tell them the reason.
We have no paint.
No paint?
Nope.
Okay. Okay. And then, one last question. Now that the highway project is done, will I expect to see the barricades taken down at the alley at Zip Trip?
We're still looking into, so Mr. Jensen is looking into, I guess what you would call some legal issues with that. We're looking to see if there was ever an easement put in place for the builders that built on that alleyway to surface over our utility. And we're researching that right now to see exactly what was done, if there was anything done, what we need to do in the future to protect ourselves. That is, we still have a sewer main that runs underneath there. And so if we ever have to get at that sewer main, we want to make sure that the city of Winter doesn't have to incur the cost to put that pavement back in place, so.
That's a separate issue.
Which has nothing to do
You're
with the
skirting,
barricades.
you're skirting the question.
My question is, it's a public alley. There's been no action to close that public alley. It doesn't deserve to be barricaded at this time, whether or not we have authorization for that company to concrete over our public alley. My question is, when are we gonna take the barricades down?
I don't know the legal status until I get a chance to really review everything on record at the courthouse as far as the legal status of our alley from the street up to where those barricades presently sit. Once I get a chance to review all that, we'll find out.
And we do not have a motion anywhere to close that alley.
I'm not sure it was open at that point as an alley. That's my point. I don't know what the legal status of that property is until I get a chance to go through the provisions. And if for purposes of this discussion, if we assume that the alley was vacated or some such thing took place at a time when Ampride first built that facility, then up to where the barricade presently sits would not constitute an alley, and the alley would in fact be from the street to the south, up to the barricades, and then to the west. I'm sorry, yeah, to the west.
Because it has been said it was cabled across, right? And then at some point in time, somebody opened the cable.
And that was without any authority from the city at all.
I have a question. Mr. Jensen, is an alleyway a public
It's never been vacated.
right away?
Uh,
Or is it a public utility easement?
Secondarily, it's a public right-of-way, but primarily it's a public utility facility to carry utilities.
Does the city have do they need, or can they block that secondary public access if they choose to,
Certainly, the city would have that authority.
operationally, or?
Well, operationally, certainly, at least for a period of time when a condition was present that was causing a problem,
Under construction. I
then
agree.
obviously, during that period of time, he would have had that authority. Whether that authority continues, we'll find out.
Very good.
That's a good answer. Understandable, that's a good answer.
Needed to clarify. Any other questions for the Public Works Director?
Thank you.
Thank you, Troy. The final report tonight, the department report comes from the finance officer, Chandra Phillips.
So I'm going to talk about the election because we haven't beat that horse yet tonight. Just as an update. So it was published last week and this week in the newspaper that the final day to register in order to vote in this election will be November 27th. And then again, on November 27th is the first day that you can take out an absentee ballot through my office as well. The notice of election will be published for the next 2 weeks in the newspaper, as well as the referred ordinance in its entirety. So ultimately, the ordinance that was originally published in the newspaper now says above it, referred ordinance, and then down below where it says first reading, second reading, passage and approval, and then it'll have the referral date on it as well. So that'll be published for 2 weeks. The ballot will also be published in the newspaper as a sample ballot. That is only required to be published 1 week. And then we would canvass the election on December 18th. Is it not on? Oh, sorry. I do want to make a correction to my statement from a couple weeks ago when I was asked how much an election would cost. At that time, I was thinking publication, paper products, the stamp, all of that. I would say $400 would be a high estimate on that. With that, I did forget to throw in there that we do pay and we will only be the only ones paying our election workers $200 a piece, and there will be 3 of them. So add that additional $600 in there. Right now, in your election budget, you currently still have $750. Depending on publication, we might fall underneath of that, or we might have to borrow from contingency to make it finalized. But contingency does have a few $1,000s remaining in it. It will work. I was also asked why we budget $1,500 sometimes for elections. Number one reason I have ever asked to budget $1,500 during a mayoral election year is because I have to plan for there to be 3 council members to run opposed and a mayor to run opposed. Then you also have 4 ballots. Then you have to publish all of those ballots. You have to publish all that information. So that's why I asked for $1,500. And actually, next year being an election year for the mayor, you didn't even give me $1,500 because I couldn't prove that I would use the $1,500. You gave me $1,200. So I'm just being honest. So it was a tight budget. It was. And so some of you better not run opposed. I'm just saying. No, I'm kidding.
Maybe Dan could cut us a break since we're
Yeah.
in the budget.
Thankfully, state legislation does support us in how much a newspaper can charge us. So that is helpful. Otherwise, we might own the newspaper because we put a lot of stuff in there. So I wanted to make that clarification and that understanding. Couple
So
other
you're
things.
estimating the total of this election to be $1,000?
Yes,
An
approximately.
estimate.
Yep.
That's what the definition of an
Yes.
estimate is
Yep.
approximate.
Yep.
Right.
Couple other things, coffee with the mayor started last Wednesday. We plan to do it every Wednesday. And we're kind of moving around. This Wednesday we'll be at Huckleberry's at 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. We put it that time so we can make sure it's only an hour and we can get back for committee meetings at 8 a.m. or one of us shows back up and the other one comes when they can. One of the comments that was made, and you heard Mr. Kuchar make this comment tonight, how do we get information out to the public? I did put a poll on our city Facebook page. It didn't get a lot of hits. 65 people voted. What's your best way to get information on the city, from the city of Winter? Their choices were radio, newspaper, live stream, Facebook notes, and other. Of those 65 votes, 42 of them said
Coffee shop.
Facebook notes. There was a few that said other, and that might be coffee shop, not sure. So we'll continue with the Facebook. Hopefully this coffee with the mayor will help things too. It's never an intention to not get information out to the public. We want as much out there as we can. So just letting you know that information. Tonight, my original intention is to go through rather quickly where our budget sits as of the end of October. The general fund, your real revenues for the general fund, at the end of October, we were 83% through the year. Your general fund revenues right now are, if you were to put the transfers in, at 89%. So they are trending above. Most of your general fund departments are looking good. There's a few that are cutting it close, some that are over in personal services, some that are under in personal services. We knew that personal services was going to be an issue this year. For instance, finance office, personal services, it's at 86%. But we knew that was going to be an issue in quite a few departments because we budgeted for 3.5%, but ended up with 7%. So we knew that that was going to be an issue, but a lot of us have been able to watch those lines underneath and hopefully be able to keep our bottom line where it needs to be. As in the general fund, it is not the bottom line of the general fund. It is the bottom line of each individual department. Because that's the only fund you can have departments in, is the general fund. So your debt services for the pool bond, that payment will be coming out next month. So you're going to see both of those, the 211 fund and then the 302 fund, you're going to show some big payments coming out of there as of December 1st. Won't be able to make any additional payments on that. The U.S. Bank, which is who holds our bond at this point in time, has said they won't take additional payments from us until the final payment. So if we have enough with our final payment or our next to final payment to pay it off in full year in advance, which is kind of where we're trending at the moment, then we can do that. But until then, they won't take any additional because they make money off of interest on the principal. Water fund revenues look great, and they're going to look even better once we get the ordinance that just went through last week. It's on second reading tonight, so both water and sewer are going to look great. Their expenses are kind of right where they need to be. Your electric fund revenues is at 96.88%. They're doing great right now. Sewer fund, the revenue side of it, there's a couple things that play into this. Number one is the estimated cash balance. We're going to change how this looks in our 2024 budget. If we estimated cash balance to use unappropriated cash to make our budgets balance, we're going to put it into a liability account and then move it up into that cash account to make it look like we're actually getting that as revenue. So you'll be able to see that in 2024. The other thing on the sewer side, we budgeted $81,950 to come in for CDBG. We won't see that until that final pay request comes through for that manhole, and that's going to be in December sometime. And then we'll be able to get reimbursement from CDBG. In fact, your pay request that's out there tonight is not reimbursable by ARPA or CDBG, anything like that. It's only being paid for by your outlay funds
that you had set aside. ARPA has been 100% fully expended. CDBG is based off of the pay requests that we get, and they are now paying us more than typical. I believe it was at 49%, and they're now paying us at 54% or something like that. So they are paying us additional due to the need that was there, but we are able to make all these payments. We will not be able to close out the outlay funds until the highway project is officially complete, both state and city side. Because ultimately, the state doesn't sign off the project's completed till their side of it is done, and CDBG, all of that fun stuff is going to want both signatures on there. Airport fund, you'll hear me talk about tomorrow in finance. Their revenues are at 145%. Their expenses, as of October 31st, were at 93%. As of today, they're a little over 100%. So we need to move some money, which I've been talking about that for a while. Sanitation fund, your real revenues right now are at 102%. So your sanitation revenues are looking great. Their expenses are looking fine too. They'll come in underneath. I don't have an exact number where they'll come underneath, but the mayor has one he is predicting, so you can ask him. Municipal jail, their real revenues are at 86% right now, at 83% of the year, and their expenses, they're at 61% on their normal expenses, but then you add in the transfers and everything, they're just a little bit under 75% on their expenses. You'll be hearing me talk tomorrow in Finance Committee. I'm getting all of those transfers done before the end of the year. And then finally, the 24/7 program, their revenues are horrible. I don't know how else to say that nicely, but their total revenues so far this year, I mean, they 20,000, but their expenses are at 23,000, so they've obviously spent more than they've made. So we're gonna have to do some moving of some cash available from that department in order to make it work before we get into some trouble. So, any questions? That was a very, very quick overview. I know Justin said anytime someone has questions on expenses and budgets and all of that, they're more than welcome to come into my office too. The finance department is always open. This is what we do every day, or at least it's what I try to do every day is numbers. So this is public information. There's nothing I can't share with anyone out there, so.
When does that $1 million CD mature? That we did
Money market?
Money market.
I honestly don't know the answer to that. I want to say it was a 5-year.
Was it 5 year? Do you know the current balance? Or?
It would be on your financial statement, so I could get that. I just don't have it in front of me.
The
So your
balance
financial
for the
statement.
electrical, was that the million
Yeah,
in the electrical department?
yes. It is separated on the financial statement.
Right. Last month, it generated $2,597.93 for the month on that balance. Currently, it sits at $1,039,498.96.
The interest on that in the last few months has been awesome. Before that, it was just a few $100s. Now we're seeing a couple $1,000s, so one of the benefits of the high interest rates.
Can we get that put on CPI? Everything else put on CPI.
I think we can ask. Councilman Hockett?
If you were to assign a letter grade for the city of Winter financials, what would you give us at this juncture?
Is that taken into the consideration of all the factors
Yes.
that had to be dealt with this
Yeah,
year?
just for the public, an overview of where we are financially, letter grade.
Oh, well,
There's alarms going off. This is gonna be scary.
You set it off, Joe.
What I'm hearing is A minus B plus, is that correct?
I would say yes. For the city as a whole, there are some departments I would put down at C and some that I would put at A. And so B plus would probably be good answer.
Can you tell us which ones are the C?
Don't you dare.
Okay, enough, thank you.
I'm
thank you.
standing too close to certain people.
Well, there's some that are inherently, it's gonna cost us money.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Law enforcement,
Exactly.
911, yeah, so.
But that doesn't make their,
That doesn't make them a bad.
no, that
company.
doesn't make them a C.
Yeah, it's how they.
They're
manage
managing the
their budget.
resources that we give them in appropriate manner was the intent of the
Yes.
question.
Compared to
Compared to
6
5
years ago?
Yeah.
5 years ago, I'd say we were at a D minus.
Thank you, thank you.
So where we are now, we've grown exponentially, and I've said this in cabinet meetings, I'm proud of where our department heads have come from, where they're going, and our appointees have learned a lot too. And so I think where we are now, a B plus, that's a good grade,
I agree.
so.
I agree.
For the public, that does conclude, or Mr. Jensen, do you have anything for a department report that you haven't commented on already?
I think we've covered it. Thank you.
Very good. So for the public, that does, at this point, conclude department reports. City of Winter has no bid openings. Tonight, there is a public hearing. The public hearing tonight is for an on-sale event application for Wings and More for the Holiday Festival at St. Mary's Hall on December 2nd of 2023. At this time, is there any public input for the Winter City Council on this application? Hearing and seeing none, at this time, Chair would entertain a motion from council.
I'll make a motion to approve the on-sale special event application for Wings and More for the Holiday Festival at St. Mary's Hall on December 2nd, 2023.
Is there a second to this motion?
I could second that, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Clunt has made the motion. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Clay. Floor is open to comment or question.
Mr. Mayor and council, everything in the finance office has been received and is in good order.
Any other comment or question?
Hope they make $1 million.
Amen. In that case, Chair will call the question. The question is, Councilman Clay has approved an on-sale special event application for Wings and More for the Holiday Festival at St. Mary's Hall on December 2nd, 2023. It's been seconded by Councilman Clay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion carries. Council, that concludes public hearings. For the public, there are no Board of Adjustments for this meeting. City of Winter now moves on to old business. This time, there is one item for consideration. Council, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve second reading for passage and approval. Ordinance 1067, supplemental budget ordinance for water and sewer funds.
Is there a
I'd
second?
second that motion.
Okay, Councilman Clunt has made the motion. The motion has been seconded by Councilman Schramm. Floor is open to comment or questions. Hearing none. Chair will call the question. It will be by a roll call vote. There is a motion for second reading for passage and approval for reading of ordinance 1067. This is a supplemental budget ordinance for water and sewer funds. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Schramm, motion by Councilman Clunt, forgive me. This time, we will do a roll call. Councilman Clunt,
Yes.
Councilman Hockett,
Aye.
Councilman Sprinkle,
Yes.
Councilman Clay,
Yes.
and Councilman Schramm.
Aye.
Ayes have it, this motion will carry. That concludes old business. The City of Winter will now move on to new business. Tonight, there are 10 items for consideration under new business. Council, item number 1, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Mayor, to accept the 2024 union contract.
Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second that.
Councilman Sprinkle has made a motion to accept the 2024 union contract. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Clunt. Floor is open to comment or question. Mr. Jensen, point of information? Or- Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I was asked to give a brief overview of everything that changed in this contract. It is highlighted or strike through in what you have, but just briefly. The first one was to amend the dates of the agreement. We do that every year. It's from January 1st to December 31st. And then negotiate a one-year contract. Those two kind of go hand in hand, but we were able to negotiate a one-year contract. Increase Appendix A by CPI plus performance bonus. Appendix A is what their starting wages are, so their starting wages increased by CPI, and then it included in there that there would be a merit base based on their cumulative score for the department, and that is what's been in that contract for several years. Other changes that we asked for from the city was to include some of our policies that we already had written in our personnel policy manual but had not been adopted by the union, and they agreed to all of these. Hours worked, as in they can take a 30-minute lunch. They're not required to take a 1-hour lunch, which was in the contract. What their hours worked are supposed to be. The grievance procedure was discussed. Seniority when requesting time off. The City of Winter had taken seniority out when requesting time off, unless it was at the exact same time as someone else, then seniority could come into play. Otherwise, it was a first come, first serve. Birthday pay was removed. We now have anniversary date pay. Again, all of these are things we've been doing. It just hadn't been changed in the contract, so we needed to get them updated. Travel reimbursement clarification. This is a little bit different than what we do with the rest of the city. They're guaranteed $40 a day for the entire day that they're gone. But they don't have an out-of-state rate. They just have this is it. So the City of Winter, all other employees have an in-state rate, an out-of-state rate, and it's based off of what time they're gone, and that's the amounts that they get. So that is something that's a little bit different than our normal policy, but it is something that we've had in the policy book for many years. 6-month advancement, we had to throw that one in there. We didn't have that before, and it was a little bit of a clarification on your hours worked plus your books passed, and that's where you start. So if you've got a 1.5 years works of books done plus a 1.5 years works of hours done, your starting wage will be that third 6-month period. So we had that clarification. Learning reimbursement. We deleted this from our personnel policy book back in 2020 or 2019, somewhere in there. We've not required it for quite some time, and it was still in the union contract, so we had it removed. And a sleep time clarification. So we did change the policy based off of a recommendation from the union director, clarifying what that means. So if you end up coming in and working overnight, and they're not gonna say you have to come in and work from 7:30 to 3 the next day, you can have some sleep time in there and still get paid for it. So that is a clarification that was put in there. Any questions on all of those policies that we updated?
Yeah, I have a question. I
Councilman
have a
Clay.
question for the mayor. Mr. Mayor, would it be your opinion that this revised union contract and your opinion, this revised union contract, is it allowing us or instructing us to treat all of our employees fairly and equally? Or is it giving special preference to some groups?
I would probably caution against going outside because the mayor's personal opinion really doesn't matter. And when it comes to the contract, it speaks for itself. There are some places where the contract by its own terms are different than what other policies are, but a lot of the policies have been adopted by the union as being included. So there's some of both.
I made my point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comment or question? Very good. At this time, Chair will call the question. All those in favor of approving the 2024 union contract, would you please say aye?
Is it by roll call?
Oh, I'm sorry, it is a roll call. Thank you, Councilman Clay. I missed that. Councilman Hockett.
Aye.
Councilman Sprinkle.
Yes.
Councilman Clay.
No.
Councilman Shrimp.
Aye.
Councilman Clint.
Yes.
Ayes have it. This motion carries. Item number 2, council, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the 2024 liquor license renewal, Homesteader and Gus Stop 6
Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Clunt has made the motion. Councilman Clay has the second on the motion. Is there any comment or question or point of information?
Yes, question.
Councilman Clay.
Did they miss the first deadlines?
They missed my first deadline.
It's not the state deadline, it was your
Correct.
deadline.
That was my deadline in case something like this happens.
And so you're wavering your deadline, it was just to
My
build in
deadline
time.
was to get them out there and get them renewed as quickly as possible. The state does recognize that they could still be turned in as a renewal. I just had to go through the publication process twice.
What is the actual deadline for submission of a liquor license renewal?
December 1st.
December 1.
Yes.
And why then do we have a deadline that's earlier than that causes us to print it twice?
The earlier you get them turned in, the earlier you can get them submitted back to your people. If you get them turned in late, then there's a possibility they might not be able to sell as of January 1st if the state does not get them processed in time. So it's a guarantee of them getting processed in a timely manner because the state does all of the state liquor licenses at the same time. And
So we're
just-
doing these people a favor by setting an artificial deadline so that they don't be late when they,
Yes,
Good.
and I have to base it off of when our council meetings are as well. I wouldn't have, it would either have had to been this meeting or last meeting. because of
And
December
incurred
1st.
the additional cost of what? Publications,
One-time
yeah.
publication, probably.
$100?
No,
30?
maybe 30 at the most. I'd have to go back and look to see what it was.
Questions?
And working with them helps us on the revenue side in the city of Winter. That's a point I'd like to make, Nancy.
Absolutely.
We're not only doing them a favor, we're doing ourselves a favor.
Correct.
Because of the, if they lost their license and couldn't do business, we lose revenue.
Yep.
So we're playing ball and you're making it equitable for both sides. I think that's great.
Any other comment or question? All right, hearing and seeing none, Chair will do a roll call vote. The motion is to approve the 2024 liquor license renewals for Homesteader and Guest Stop 6.
You don't need a roll call on that.
Oh, this one had it. All right, I'll just call the question. All those in favor, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it, and this motion carries. Item number 3, council, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the contract with Drop Time Design for a website upgrade in the amount of $2,550.
Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second it, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Clunt has made the motion, Councilman Clay with the second. Floor is open to comment or question or point of information.
I've got a
Councilman
lot of
Clay.
questions, and I apologize, I missed that committee meeting, so I do have a lot of questions, but Austin, it's your motion.
I don't have any questions.
Okay.
I had a committee. with-
Chairman,
All right.
floor is yours, Councilman Clay.
So, transparency. Everybody knows, and if they read the packet, they know. And I have to ask these questions in fairness of everything, the constituents, the business, the people, and everything. So I'm not being attacking by asking these questions. Was this let for bid?
No,
It was not.
no.
Okay. I, thank you. Drop time, what do we call it? Took my glasses off.
Drop Time
Drop
Design.
time design is Chelsea Lewis. He's employee of the city. I'm sure he does great work. I'm sure she does great work. I had asked the mayor, I'm gonna ask the attorney to confirm. I was questioning conflict. And the mayor said that any city employee can be paid up to $5,000 a year on a sideline thing for a contract with the city. Is that correct?
No, that would be
I
different
said
based upon
councilman.
whether you're talking
Councilman.
about a city council person. There's nothing in statute that says an employee of the city has a certain amount that they can or cannot earn in a sideline job. Under the ordinance, well, I shouldn't say under the ordinance, under the policies of the city of Winter, it's really a matter of, A, making sure that if you have additional employment outside your city employment, A, it has to be approved by your immediate supervisor, and B, it can't be something that conflicts with your duties or takes you away from your duties with the city. Beyond that, there's no other legal impediments one way or the other.
Go ahead. I'll probably have more questions, but go ahead.
No, it's okay. I did want to make note for the public's information that yes, this is a city employee that has a business with another person that does website design. I did review several of the websites that they have done before. I have worked with our current website developer. I did not get a quote from a third party at this point in time. I have old quotes from third parties. Ultimately, this was a local person that I did feel could do the job. I will say that the original contract is a little bit more than $2,550. That's because this included sales tax. City of Winter is tax exempt, so we removed that from the contract with a tax exempt certificate. This would not start until January 1st. I do have it within my budget to pay for this within that time frame. Also, with this, it's only updating the City of Winter side. A couple years ago, the Chamber Economic Development did reach out to the city, ask if we wanted to combine with them. They decided a year ago to go their own direction. And so this would only be City of Winter, and we own the domain, wintersd.org.
Any further questions? Councilman
I
Clark?
just got one comment, and Ron had asked earlier. You know, it's kind of like our number 4, our next deal. As long as you follow all rules, you know, we had a councilman for several years that we let bid stuff. Same situation in my eyes.
Illegally.
I think as long as we follow bid, quote,
It's,
make sure she does her work outside of city hours, I'm fine with it.
right. All those things are good points, and like I said, what I bring up are just good points, and we need the public to know what's
Yes.
going on and
Yeah.
completely forward. And our website does need freshened up
Yes.
horribly.
Best part of it is, there's gonna be training for more than just myself to update that, and that's part of this contract, so that it can be updated more. I'm pretty sure Joe's not even on there. I don't know.
So,
Maybe it's Justin.
Brad,
I don't think I am.
I don't know, you're there.
did the conditions of the company, the employee, Justin, did you sign off on this? Because didn't you say that was as long as, yeah?
For her to have her side business, yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And bid in this contract, you were good with that?
Yeah, that was.
Okay, all right, then we checked all the boxes, right?
Yep.
All right, thank you.
But did I understand correctly that we only got one bid, or we only solicited one bid?
No bids were taken on this. It was simply it's less than $4,000. And it was simply, I asked what our current company would do for us, which we're not happy with our current company, and they would continue to use the same type of software. This is a different software that is more user-friendly. I do have a bunch of old quotes out there from other companies, but she was the only other local one that I had gotten a quote from.
Let me make sure I heard that right. You asked the current software provider, or website provider, to give us an update, or to give us a price?
If they could do a different,
update?
yep.
Okay. And did they give you a quote?
They didn't give me a price, they just said that they couldn't change the software that they use.
That they did not want to do it, okay? Happy.
Any other comment or questions?
No.
Okay. Chair will call the question at this time. The question is to approve a contract with Drop Time Design for a website upgrade in the amount of $2,550. This question is called by a roll call vote. Councilman Sprinkle.
Yes.
Councilman Clay.
Yes.
Councilman Schramm.
Yes.
Councilman Clunt.
Yes.
And Councilman Hockett.
Aye.
The ayes have it, and this motion carries. Item number 4, council, do you have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to enter into contract with Office Product Center for a 2-year lease on a Ricoh copier and equipment maintenance contract.
Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second that.
Councilman Clay has made the motion. The motion has been seconded by Councilman Clunt. Floor is open to comment or question.
The question I would have here is, are these machines quite expensive? Because I looked at the cost of the lease on a 2-year period, computed it out. How much does one of these cost to buy it outright?
So I actually looked at that too. When we were looking at it to buy outright, it was gonna be right around $7,000 for what we wanted. At that point in time, my committee said,
Try again.
The axe was strong that day. So, the other thing that comes with this, when you have this equipment agreement maintenance, that you get your toner for free. So we go through quite a bit of toner in this machine, so because of, that's kind of what the color count pays for, is the toner, that makes a huge difference. Right now, I have a 10-year-old machine that has over 1 million copies on it. Every color page cost me 31 cents. Every black and white page cost me 20 cents. So that's why I've been kind of limiting what I copy for you all. Because it was really starting to add up. It is going to go down a lot. So the rent for the new machine for 2 years, the lease, is $398 per month, 24 months, and there's a $1 buyout at the end of that. And then for the counts, it's going to be a little bit over a penny for a black count and a little over 2 pennies for a color count. So it's all gonna wash in the long run. Plus I have maintenance on it, so if something breaks down, it's covered under that contract. They can come in, I'll get the toners with it. So there's quite a few good things to have somebody who's willing to come work on it right away.
That's the long answer. Short answer is, it went through committee, we shot it down, we approved the lease through committee, and it was approved through the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The big kicker is the maintenance by leasing it. If you buy it, it's yours.
Council, any other comments or questions? Hearing none, Chair will call the question by a roll call vote, which is to approve a contract with Office Product Center for a 2-year lease on a Ricoh IMC 300 and equipment maintenance. Councilman Clay.
Yes.
Councilman Schramm.
Aye.
Councilman Clunt.
Yes.
Councilman Hockett.
Aye.
Councilman Sprinkle.
Yes.
Ayes have it, and this motion will carry. Item number 5, council. Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2023-26, amending the policy book in regards to fuel bids.
Is there a second to this motion?
I would second that, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Clunt has the motion, Councilman Schramm with the second. Floor is open to comment, question, or point of information.
Can you clarify what this is all
You want a
about?
point of information? Mr. Jensen, if you would, please.
This particular policy, I'm sure I'm on the right one.
The circus is in town.
This particular one is a policy that gives us a new fuel procurement system. And in fact, I was just writing that up with Chandra today, getting ready to put out bids for fuel that will be an annual bid. They will be bidding based upon whatever, I mean, they're not bidding the price of the actual fuel because that's going to be set by the state bid website based upon the day of delivery. What they're bidding on is what additional charges will they charge us for delivery, handling, service fee, whatever. So that's really the nature of the bid, and that's what this resolution is to adopt this policy.
And the propane, Mr. Jensen.
Pardon me?
And propane.
And propane, thank you, yeah, propane. We're going out for a shorter period of propane, and we talked with the propane suppliers when we wrote this policy. And one of the things that we looked at is, what is the period of time for which they're willing to and are interested in trying to contract for their propane? And it really came out kind of a September to April period of time. Because of the fact we're getting this ready to go into place just shortly before the end of the year, for this year, we will put out a notice for bids, accepting bids for propane just from January 1 to April. And then next year it'll go for the full period of time.
Any other comments or questions?
I'm interested in the time frame of this. If we pass this tonight, we wait 20 days before we can put the bids out?
20 days before it's effective, that we can accept bids. We can certainly advertise for bids prior to that. The advertisement for bids says we have the right to reject any bids that we decided we should reject. What it does is it allows us to get the notice sent out while we're still in this 20-day period.
Because this is first reading tonight, correct? Or is this?
This is a resolution.
It's a resolution, so we don't have that.
Correct.
That
It's not
baloney
refer-
of
it's
two
not refer-
meetings and-
Correct, so it's a
Okay.
one-shot deal, so.
Okay.
It'll
So-
go with publication this coming Wednesday, I assume,
Yes.
and
I'm sorry?
publication this coming Wednesday, so the 22nd. So 20 days after that, it'll be effective.
Election day.
Yeah.
It will be December 12th.
Okay.
The bids will actually be opened on December 18th. And then
December
council would
18th
award
is when the
December
bids would be due?
Yep.
Correct,
Okay.
yep. And those will be opened at 1 o'clock in the afternoon of the 18th, and then presented to council that
And
evening.
all they're bidding on is like a delivery fee, a margin of profit, blah, blah, blah.
Whatever-
Not the cost of the fuel.
Whatever they charge in addition to that amount that's set by the state.
Correct.
Correct.
For fuel. Propane is different.
Propane is different. The state does not have a bid on propane, so the bidder will be bidding.
So
the
two
cost.
separate bids?
Oh,
this
yes.
will go out as? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, very good. I just want to make sure I understand it, because it's so darn complicated anyway.
Yeah, and understand that any supplier can put in separate bids, and they would need to be separate if they want to bid all of the different types of bulk fuel. So you've got your diesel fuel at 2 different grades plus a 50/50 grade, you've got your gasoline. They could bid just one of those, they could bid them all, whatever. However the bidding comes out, there's certainly a possibility that one bidder could get item 1 and item 3,
Okay.
and a different bidder 2 and 4.
So each product will have a separate bid,
It will.
not necessarily the same margin on all products?
That's up to the bidder. Yes.
Okay.
Any other comment or question? Hearing none. In this case, I will call the question by a roll call vote. The question in hand is approving Resolution 2023-26, amending the policy book regarding fuel bids. Councilman Schramm.
Aye.
Councilman Clunt.
Yes.
Councilman Hockett.
Aye.
Councilman Sprinkle.
Yes.
And Councilman Clay.
Yes.
Ayes have it. This motion carries. Item number 6. Council, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-27 to amend the personnel policy book for travel policy and shift pay.
Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second that.
Councilman Schramm has the motion, Councilman Clunt the second. Floor is open to comments, questions, or point of information. Point of information.
So both of these policies, I'll start with the shift pay policy. What the shift pay policy, all we're changing in there is we're taking out the grandfather clause for permanent shift. What we intend to do, our new executive time system doesn't support 2 different kinds of shifts, and then another permanent shift as well. So what we proposed and took before the personnel committee and all the department heads was the 3 grandfathered employees could get a 25-cent raise across the board, and then they would just go to shift pay like everyone else. They would not be any different than anyone else. It's my understanding all three of those employees agreed, all the department heads agreed, the appointees agreed. Everybody's one happy family. So, right now, we're getting the policy changed, and then we'll come back once the policy has been through the 20 days and get the raises approved for those three individuals. The travel policy, the first part of the travel policy that was amended is to get us in line with the federal guidelines. We did have it that all food reimbursements were going through accounts payable. We have since learned that for federal guidelines, if it is a one-day travel, it is required to be taxed and go through your payroll. If it is an overnight travel, then it goes through accounts payable. So we changed that portion of it. The other thing that we found is that every department was doing travel pay differently. So if you go to a conference, if you go to training, if you go to continued ed, everyone was doing a little bit different. Some were saying you get 40 hours, doesn't matter, that's it. Some were saying I'm not paying you to travel. Some were saying, oh no, we're gonna pay you for every second that you're there. Ultimately, this gives a very clear guideline. You will get 8 hours a day, that's it. If you want more than 8 hours a day, you have to prove to us that you were in class for those 8 hours a day, or that you were traveling above and beyond for those, and you have to document it. So ultimately, there'll be some documentation needed from the employee side, and it also protects the city from, everyone will be treated the same way when it comes to this in the future.
Any other comment or question? Hearing and seeing none, Chair will call the question. The question will be a roll call vote. The question is to approve Resolution 2023-27, amending the personnel policy book, specifically travel policy and shift pay motion. This time, Chair will use a roll call vote. Councilman Clunt,
Yes.
Councilman Hockett,
Aye.
Councilman Sprinkle is excused, Councilman Clay,
Yes.
and Councilman Schramm.
Aye.
The ayes have it, and this motion carries. Item number 7. Council, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the contract addendum number 2 with River Bottom Sanitation.
Is there a second to this motion?
I would second that, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Clunt with the motion, Councilman Schramm with the second. Floor is open to comment or question or point of information.
Mr. Mayor, I would just explain, I was initially told by Troy, and then we discussed it in committee, because River Bottoms has had a difficult time and has been trying to find a place where they can get their equipment indoors especially during the winter months, and has been unsuccessful in locating something here in town. The discussion was, and we agreed we would present to the committee, and the committee agreed that we could offer River Bottom this addendum, which basically would have them renting space inside our facility at the transfer station, where they would be able to park their truck inside our facility after hours. And I mean after the hours of our facility. We made sure that this provision requires that their equipment will be driven by and moved only by their people. And there is a provision naturally to hold harmless the city of Winter for anything that might happen untoward to just because of the fact their stuff is in our facility. The bottom line is it comes out that there is about a little over $5,000, I'm sorry, $5,840 per year for them to be able to park in that facility off hours. And that would be split out into 12 monthly amounts, and it's actually going to be handled as a credit against what we otherwise pay River Bottom every month. So That's what the committee agreed, basically the way this was written, and so it's presented to council. Adam, on behalf of the River Bottom Sanitation, has agreed to it. Matter of fact, it was his request that we look at doing this.
Question,
I
Councilman
don't
Clay.
have the motion, but,
Go ahead.
All right, so it appears there's I'd say fair compensation in this. This agreement is, we're being good neighbors with River Bottom Sanitation, I would say. And it spells out legally, our employees can't move their trucks.
Correct.
That's where I can see problems coming, because unfortunately, we know some of their employees have had maybe issues at times about not showing up or not being there. That truck's sitting there, it's in our road, we got a load of recycle going out, we can't move it.
Adam's gonna have to have somebody
Right,
there.
right.
And he knows.
I'm not saying throw a wrench in this whole darn thing, I'm just saying, I could see some issues, but yeah, let's try it. I see we could break the contract in 30 days if either of us give notice. Great, being friendly, good neighbors, no problems. Just want to make the statement,
Sure.
just because.
And not only that, Councilman Clay, that when it's 30 below outside and you leave that truck full of hydraulics sitting outside,
Oh,
we're
understand.
not gonna get our garbage picked up that morning.
Well, one of the things that was discussed in committee is that, yeah, sure, this is a benefit for our contractor, but it's a benefit for the city as well.
Yes.
To ensure that the contractor has that much more of an opportunity to make sure their equipment runs.
But it's not our responsibility to provide him a place to store his truck.
It is not.
It's not. We're being a good neighbor.
But we're also collecting.
Getting rent.
Yeah, fair, like I said, we're getting fair compensation.
$5,800 to be a good neighbor for us. You can see that any way you want, but, I mean, it's equitable for both sides. I don't see a problem with it.
I don't see a problem with it either. I just see potential problems with it.
Councilman Clay.
I'm fine with the way that looks. The only thing that I don't think is really normal practice for us doing business with another place is deducting stuff off of their bill. Money in, money out, I know it's a wash.
You and I are from the same cloth.
But
We
if
want
it
the
was
paper
my
trail.
business and Joe's business, city funds, I don't know if we should do it like that.
There should be a paper trail.
Well, I think even doing it this way, there's still gonna be a paper.
I'm fine with it, that's not normal practice.
Yep.
If Joe Blow comes in and says, I'll just take it off my utility bill, we won't do it for him.
No.
So, I'm still fine with it, I just don't know that we want to set a precedence about doing stuff like that.
Any other comments? Hearing none, Chair will call the question. This question is a roll call vote. The question in hand is approving contract addendum number 2 with River Bottom Sanitation. Councilman Clunt,
Yes.
Councilman Hockett,
Aye.
Councilman Sprinkle,
Yes.
Councilman Clay,
Yes.
Councilman Schramm.
Aye.
The ayes have it, this motion carries. Item number 8, council, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve first reading of ordinance 1068, grease traps.
Is there a second to this motion?
I would second that, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Clunt with the motion, Councilman Schramm with the second. Floor is open to comment, question, or point of information.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
My question is, I think that grease traps is covered by plumbing codes. I mean, I know they just done that daycare deal, and they had to have that in there to meet plumbing codes. So,
Point of information from Mr. Jensen.
under this ordinance, it not only requires the grease trap for food preparation businesses, those types of things, but the other thing that it does, and it, believe me, this came up based upon some experience that our water and sewer folks here in winter had a problem with at least one, if not more, places, and the difficulty that it created within the system, and the amount of money and time that we spent cleaning it up. And so consequently, I was asked to prepare an ordinance that not only makes these definitions and the requirements spelled out a little more clearly, but it also provides some teeth in it, so that if we've got somebody that is not property maintaining, and we end up with another situation where somebody's grease trap is left to run over, and we end up with our city Public Works Department having to go spend a lot of time and money cleaning it up, then at this point in time, they will bring this situation to me as the city attorney. I will file a criminal complaint against the business that can cost them $500 in a fine. But more importantly, we will be able to assess a civil penalty against them for whatever our costs are. So if we have X number of hours of employee time, we know how to bill that out. If we have X number of hours of our equipment or our vehicles, we know how to bill that out, and it's cost straight up if we have to go buy chemicals.
So basically, maintenance and proper care of the grease pits.
Maintenance and proper care will prevent me from having to ever worry about that.
And it also gives the Public Works Director the authority to go inspect it.
It does, thank you.
Because otherwise, without that, we have to wait till it breaks down and
Correct.
causes us trouble. So this way they can go in and look, catch it before it happens.
Troy don't have enough to do.
Any other comment or question? Very good comment.
I drives me nuts, all these ordinances, but should we have or his designee like we have in the past?
Should have what, please?
Or his designee, if he's not here? I don't know, it don't matter.
Frankly, it's implied.
It
The
is.
law- The law would
Okay.
say it's implied.
Okay.
When he says, I have the authority to go inspect this thing, he can look at his water sewer supervisor and say, go check that
Okay,
on my behalf. Yep.
sounds
The
good.
law is on your side.
Comment? or
And by the way, it is in there.
Oh, it is.
I forgot that, but you look in there specifically in paragraph number 5, and it does talk about the Public Works Director or designee.
Okay.
Second line.
Good catch, Clint.
You're rubbing off on me, Brad.
That's all right.
All right, Chair will just call the question. And the question to be called is approve first reading of ordinance 1068, an ordinance specifically dealing with grease traps in the city of Winter. All those in favor of approving first reading, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion carries. Item number 9. Council, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to pay request number 13 for PCN X05H Highway Project in the amount of $116,247.52.
Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second that.
Oops, sorry, I thought that was streets.
Councilman Clay has the motion, Councilman Sprinkle the second. Floor is open to comment or question or point of information.
So I would just like to say that this actually has no utility work on this pay request. This pay request 100% pays for the Hall Road and everything that was done there, renting that piece of equipment from Morris Equipment. We're paying Reedy for that. And then also the color concrete. So they're the two change orders that you approved. This will be paid 1/2 sewer, 1/2 water.
Councilman Clay, question?
It is streets, it's just being paid out of water sewer, that's why the note was there, okay. Thought I overstepped my bounds for a minute.
You did not, sir. Any other comment or question? Hearing none, Chair will call the question, which is approving pay request number 13 for PCN X05H, the highway project in the amount of $116,247.52. All those in favor of approving, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion carries. Final item for tonight, item number 10. Council, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to pay the claims.
Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Councilman Clay with the motion, Councilman Hockett with the second. Floor is open to comment, question, or point of information.
Is that 116 in
Includes the
the
116
claims?
and.
Very good catch, Councilman.
Nope, I need you to include that,
If
please.
you would like
My
to,
second involves the 116.
Councilman Clay, are you amending? He is not. Is there a motion?
Yes, I'll.
All right. Councilman Clay has amended his motion to approve the claims, including the $116,247.52 payment to Reedy, on pay request number 13. Councilman Hockett has amended his second. Any other comment or questions?
I had a question on 22. Is that an insurance claim?
I want to verify, yes, it
Okay.
is, and we've already received payment for it back from our insurance company. They just reimbursed us minus our $1,000 deductible.
Okay.
I'm going to give you time. It looks like a few of you are looking at your packets. All right. If there are no other comments or questions, Chair will call the question, which is paying the claims for the city of Winter for the past 2-week period. All those in favor of paying these claims with the addition of the pay request number 13, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, this motion carries. That concludes new business. There are no executive sessions. At this time, Chair, would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I provide you with a motion to adjourn.
Councilman Hockett with the motion, is there a second?
Yes.
Councilman Clay with the second. Council, all those in favor of adjourning, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it, this motion carries.